evening, and thank you so much for joining us tonight for Decision 2023, the District 35 primary debate. I'm Spectrum News 13 political anchor, Ibeth Brusual.
And I'm Steve Lemongello, political editor for the Orlando Sentinel. Over the next half hour, we're giving you an opportunity to learn about the candidates, hoping to get your vote in the upcoming special election for District 35. The decisions made in the Florida House affect all of us, from the economy to our schools to the environment.
Yeah, there's so much going on in that district. Speaking of which, let's talk about the landscape. There's a map, District 35, covering the eastern portions of Orange and Osceola counties. It's a growing area of Central Florida. This became vacant after Representative Fred Hawkins stepped down, resigned earlier this year. 6 candidates vying to take a spot. The primary election is on November 7th.
Here with us now, we have the 3 Democrats running for the seat: Rishi Baga, Marucci Guzman, and Tom Keene.
Okay, so when we begin, each candidate will have 1 minute to make an opening statement. After that, they will get 45 seconds to go ahead and respond to the questions, and then 15 seconds for rebuttals if another candidate calls them out by name. Tonight's questions were selected by the editorial teams at Spectrum News 13 and the Orlando Sentinel.
First, let's start with opening statements. By random draw, Rishi Baga will go first. Mr. Baga, you have 1 minute.
I'm Rishi Baga, and I was your Democratic nominee last year. As a former prosecutor, I know a bully when I see one, and Ron DeSantis and MAGA Republicans are mercilessly bullying our state. The Republicans have defunded our public schools, censored our teachers, and taken over our state colleges and universities. The DeSantis agenda has ignored science and taken away a woman's right to make her own health care decisions. And the Republican supermajority has passed hurtful legislation, fanning the flames of division, and stayed silent in the face of hate. As your 2023 Democratic nominee, I will continue to fight back against Ron DeSantis and extremist Republicans. We need to stand up for all Floridians, no matter where they're from, how they live, or who they love. I'm not giving up on Florida, and neither should you. I was honored to be your Democratic nominee last year, and I ask for your trust to finish the job.
All right, next opening statement, Marucci Guzman for 1 minute of opening statement.
Hello, I wanted to first thank Spectrum 13 and the Orlando Sentinel for giving the voters of House District 35 the opportunity to meet the candidates on stage today. My name is Marucci Guzman, and I'm running in the special election for House District 35. As a mom of 2 girls, I share your fears and frustrations regarding the future of our state. Having moved to Orange County from Puerto Rico at the age of 3, I've seen our community evolve. As your state representative, I will work every day to ensure that Florida is a state where families are welcome and businesses can thrive. I have done this work through advocacy in Tallahassee and at home. For more than 20 years, I have dedicated my professional career to helping families in Central Florida, whether increasing access to health care, helping families with unique abilities, or providing affordable housing. I have been doing this work from day one. Having knocked on over 4,000 doors, I know the voters of House District 35 are ready for change. After today's debate, I hope I can earn your vote. Thank you again for having me.
And last but not least, Tom Keene, you have 1 minute.
Well, thank you all for inviting me here today. Again, my name is Tom Keene. I'm a Navy veteran and a proud Democrat, and I want to be your voice in Tallahassee for District 35. I've had an incredible journey, 21 years on active duty in the Navy, and now 20 years in the business sector. Honor, duty, and commitment became the foundation of who I am today, which is why I was so upset last year when Coach P, Renee Placencia, Republican, and the spouse of one of my opponents, abandoned his seat to take a swampy job and basically lobby back to his former colleagues. And then we've already heard the reason why we're having this special election. Fred Hawkins, another Republican, also abandoned his job due to getting another swampy job from the governor. And that's why we have a special election this year. I couldn't stand by while our district sat for the longest time without representation for the longest time in the history of Florida. We need someone who actually respects public service.
Okay, time is up. Time is up. Thank you all three for those opening statements. What do you say? Let's get to the big questions right now. This is a topic that impacts so many people. I would dare to say everybody watching tonight, and that is a crisis. Florida facing homeowner insurance crisis in the wake of multiple hurricanes and more than a dozen providers leaving the Sunshine State. Multiple special sessions and bills have been passed to address this crisis, but the trend sadly continues. What do you propose the legislature should do to address it? And we want specifics. We will start this with Mr. Baga.
Absolutely. So this is an incredibly important question and an incredibly major problem that's facing our homeowners in Florida. Certainly, it's affecting me myself. I just lost my carrier in Florida as well, so I'm affected by this just as much everyone else is. I think there's some specific things we can do. In the short term, we need to make sure that we make the appropriate investments in our state's reinsurance marketplace so that there's more availability for insurers. But we can't just focus on the insurers in this problem. We have to focus on homeowners too. So I would recommend that we have some sort of homeowners assistance program whereby homeowners can also ask for some assistance from the state to make sure that they don't lose their homes.
Okay, and excuse me, the same question to you. Have 45 seconds, Mr. Keene.
Sure. So in the Sentinel today, and I think it might have been from Tampa, they talked about the special session that just happened, or that happened several months ago. The goal of that special session was not to lower insurance rates. So that should have been the goal from the get-go. It's important for us to go into the special session with the realistic idea of what you want to come out of it. And all we ended up doing was tort reform and some other things. And then the governor admitted that we don't expect to see any lower insurance rates here for the next several years. Who knows how long it'll be. He'll be long out of office. So I agree we need to strengthen our reinsurance, and we need to make sure that homeowners are given the advantages that big insurance companies have had to date.
Okay, and 45 seconds to respond as well for you, Ms. Guzman.
Thank you. So homeowners insurance is another example of a supermajority in Tallahassee not getting the job done. Voters elected representatives to go to Tallahassee to deal with real issues. Instead of those real issues, we spent the majority of session working on issues that weren't of importance to families, had to call a special session that still didn't address a crisis within our communities. When we're looking at homeowners insurance, we have to first hold homeowner insurance companies accountable, make sure that we're auditing their books, and that when they're asking for a handout from the state, that handout is being passed to the residents of the state. There is no reason why families in Florida cannot afford to live here because of their homeowners insurance rates.
Okay, on to our next question. The Live Local Act that passed this year included up to $811 million in investments in affordable housing through tax breaks and incentives. But the state continues to be an expensive place to live. What more can the legislature do to address the affordable housing crisis in Florida? And Mr. Keene, you first.
Sure. So the first thing is I don't necessarily trust the legislature for what they just did. The proof's in the pudding, as they say. We've had many years of raiding the Stadowski Fund, and I'm not sure that this won't be the same thing that happens again. So we're going to have to see how that plays out. The other thing about Live Local is the preemption requirements that come with it that rob local governments of their ability to basically manage their own growth in their community. So we need to make sure that those things happen as well. And finally, I would expect that that we have to go with smart growth, and we have to give local communities the opportunity to invest in that kind of infrastructure before we allow growth to move forward.
Okay. Ms. Guzman?
So affordable housing is an issue that when you're knocking on doors, voter after voter has something to say about it. In my professional career, I've helped create affordable housing. I've worked with local government in ways to find creative avenues to increase homeowner ability for working class. We need to keep being creative. Not raiding the Stadowski Fund obviously is one of those big issues. That's something that for many years the legislature was able to do. So putting that pressure, making sure that we're holding Tallahassee accountable, that we're electing more Democrats so that we can have a greater voice at the table. So when those conversations are being had, we can make sure that we're the ones pushing for what we want for our communities. And the Live Local Act is one of those examples where the majority of Democrats supported it.
Okay, Mr. Baga?
Yeah, I think the Live Local Act has been a mixed bag at best. I'm thrilled to see that there's some money finally being put into our affordable housing system. Like my opponents have stated, for years, and really since 2002, the legislature has been raiding the Sadowski Fund and taking that money that should have been for affordable housing and taking it elsewhere. So I'm glad to see the investment being made. But despite the name of the bill itself, Live Local, it's actually taking away local control for so many of these issues. I sit on Orange County's Charter Review Commission, where we try to come up with local solutions to our problems. But unfortunately, so often the legislature has preempted us and taken away our right to make those decisions for ourselves. I think that's wrong.
Okay, next question. Let's talk about the explosive growth, I would say, in your particular district here, Lake Nona area, which has grown from, it's hard for me to even process this, just about 1,500 people 20 years ago, roughly, to more than 60,000 people today, and it's still growing. Is your district growing too fast? And how do you prevent transportation bottlenecks like the ones we see in parts of Kissimmee and St. Cloud? Ms. Guzman, 45 seconds.
Sure. So my eldest daughter goes to Lake Nona High School, so I'm very aware of the traffic on Narcoossee daily. Whenever they schedule something, either right after school or even 2 hours after school, I'm always hesitant to make that traffic down. But when we're looking at growth, obviously we can't control it, right? People want to come to Florida, and we want them to come to Florida because that helps build our community. But we need to do a better job of funding what we value. And what we value is quality of life, so we have to make sure that our communities have the dollars to be able to improve the infrastructure within their community. I have a nonprofit center in Kissimmee and a mental health office in Poinciana, so I know very well their struggles, and it's definitely an issue where funding is required to be able to make an impact.
All right, thank you so much for that. Mr. Baga, 45 seconds.
There's no question for anyone who's been in this district that the growth is tremendous, and that is leading to its own set of problems. You know, one of my concerns is always with the environment. How are we going to balance the environmental damage that growth can sometimes have? And I've been an outspoken proponent to make sure that as we grow upwards and not always outwards. We're not affecting the environmental treasures that we have in our district, such as Split Oak and Hal Scott Preserve. So we have to make sure that we make those decisions properly. But I also think, and I've spoken about this at length, that we need to be able to invest further in our transportation dollars. I think we should be considering tourist dollars as a good way to try to increase the funding for transportation in our area.
Okay, same question, Mr. Keene, 45 seconds.
Sure. So the most important thing is we need to be able to fund infrastructure before they build these massive developments. I live right off Narcoossee Road as well, and so I see it on a daily basis. I mean, it backs up all the way from the 408 all the way back to St. Cloud. It's just an incredible mess right now. The legislature has actually handicapped the counties a little bit by not allowing them to raise builder impact fees as much as they need to, so that they can put the infrastructure in place. So we need to take those handcuffs off of counties right now and let them be able to charge those builder impact fees so we can build the roads that need it. But building roads isn't the only thing, and I very strongly believe in public transportation as well, and we need to be funding public transportation too.
Okay, time for our next question. The Democrats have been in the minority in Tallahassee for decades. What do you think Democrats and the Florida Democratic Party should be doing to turn this around on a larger scale? And how long will it take? Mr. Baga, 45 seconds.
Look, there's no question that it's difficult times for Democrats in Tallahassee right now. I think it's important that we stay firm on our principles and continue to talk to voters and make sure they understand exactly what we're advocating for. Because I think that if Floridians know what Democrats are supporting, what we're behind, and why we're the best choice for them, I think that they'll vote for us and bring us back into power. You know, I think there's a lot you can still do as a member of a super minority party. So that includes making sure that you continually advocate for the principles and issues that are important to you, and make sure that you work with the party in charge whenever possible as well.
All right, Mr. Keene.
Sure. So I've said this before, so I'll say it again. The way you eat an elephant is one bite at a time. So we're not in the majority right now. We're actually in the super minority, but we have to do it We have to get back one seat at a time, and that's why this seat, House District 35, is so important that a Democrat flip this district. We need to start making progress. We need to talk to our values and make sure that the voters in House District 35 understand what we stand for. And the communication there is critical. And that's why I've been knocking on doors and talking to voters every single day during this special election period.
Ms. Guzman, 45 seconds.
So the second part of that question was, how long will it take? Too long. It's been too long since we've been in power, rather. So we need to keep talking to voters. I think one of the things I often mention when I'm talking to people within the Democratic Party as a lifelong Democrat is that the party has forgotten how to message to the community. Our community wants to prosper. It wants to be healthy. Our children want to do well in school. We want to make sure that we're paying attention to the issues that galvanize the community, that get voters out the door to the polling place. After having knocked on 4,000 doors, that's a conversation that we often have with voters is, how do I take what your needs are, what you're looking for as a community, and make that something actionable in Tallahassee? So looking forward to getting to Tallahassee to be able to continue doing that work.
All right, let's get to the next question, shall we? And this is a big one that has gotten so much attention. Florida making national headlines, of course, for books being removed from school libraries under the umbrella of recent legislation that purports to preserve parental rights. What role should parents play in determining what is taught in schools? For this question, Mr. Keene, we'll start with you. 45 seconds.
Great, thanks. So obviously, it's just crazy. We are taking a very slim minority of folks, and they are basically driving book banning throughout our schools and our libraries. We have a process. If your child, if you don't want them to read a certain book, there is a process in place. They should not be censoring what other children can read based on their own views. So we need to go back to Tallahassee. We need to advocate to overturn that rule, that law, and put the power back into the local schools so that they can regulate via the libraries and the processes that they already have in place or already had in place. We just need to stand up for our children.
Okay, Ms. Guzman, same question for you. 45 seconds, please.
So our teachers in public schools are the lifeline of our community. So they're the ones that are with our children day in, day out. Until it became a political issue, books were not an issue within our schools. It's been a very small minority that's been able to ban these books. Just today I read that Seminole County Public Schools is looking to ban upwards of 30 books just because a neighboring county did that. That's not the way that our school system should work. I love that we give kids that much credit, that we think that they're reading as often as the schools, as Tallahassee makes us think they are, but books should never be banned, and the people banning the books are the ones that aren't reading them. We should be making sure that our children are learning accurate history, their history, and we should not be letting Tallahassee dictate to teachers what they should be teaching to children in the classroom.
Okay, Mr. Baga.
For so many folks who move into our district, one of the reasons you do is because it has great schools. And I think so any parent, and I'm a parent myself, any parent should be deeply concerned about the attacks that are against our public school system right now. This book banning and don't say gay, all these different things all reflect that same sort of attack on our school, and we absolutely have to fight back against it. Look, I think that not only are these things, bad for students because it subjects so many students to, bullying and being targeted just because they look different and they don't have access to the types of things that would allow there to be more of a conversation so that they aren't isolated, so that they are brought in and that we all realize that all Floridian students belong in those schools.
All right, next question. Now, this seat was vacated by Representative Fred Hawkins, who hailed from Osceola County. What have you done to reach out to voters in Osceola County, and what do you think is their biggest Osceola-specific concern? We'll start with Ms. Guzman.
So I think the residents of Osceola is similar to the residents of Orange County. We want to make sure that we're preserving our quality of life, that we have access to affordable health care, that we have access to affordable housing, that transportation is dealt with. All these things, the same things, those issues cross boundaries. To help voters at the door, or in Osceola County, I've been knocking on doors. We've joined the St. Cloud Democrats to knock on doors, helped fund their Palm Card to make sure that they can continue to knock on doors and make that connection with the residents of St. Cloud. When you're looking at a community, you're legislating for the entire community. Although we all reside in Orange County, we understand that Osceola is a big portion of the county. We want to make sure that, I want to make sure that through my work, we're able to address their issues also.
Okay, Mr. Baga.
I first started running for this position in 2021, and since that time, I've had a lot of time to spend down in Osceola County and speak to the voters down there and hear their concerns. And by and large, Democrat or Republican, the biggest concern that they always have is the issue of growth. And they're concerned that more and more of their community, especially down in Osceola, a lot of it is rural in its character. They're concerned that that rural land is being taken away, the natural beauty of the lakes and streams down there are being taken away. And they're also dealing with a lot of the issues that result from all of the construction. Their water has been bad. They have had flooding issues after Hurricane Ian. So we need to be able to make sure that the state is doing what it can to let the local government decide how it wants its development to take place in Osceola.
Okay, Mr. Keene, 45 seconds.
Sure. So District 35 is one of the largest geographic districts in the whole state of Florida. And we have multiple industries, if you will, in Orange County that you don't see necessarily in Osceola. So for example, agriculture and ranching is huge in Osceola. So we need to make sure that we're protecting that way of life, if you will, and making sure that that continues. At the same time, we've talked about growth, and it really comes down to traffic. That's the thing that people see on an everyday basis. So we have to make sure that infrastructure is keeping up to date. And finally, I would advocate that because it's such a big district, that we go to some sort of digital app or something like that with digital democracy so that we can get that feedback direct from the voters in Osceola County.
Okay, time is up for that one. This is really interesting. All three of you have touched on the fact that there's a Republican supermajority up in Tallahassee. So the next question is, what is one piece of legislation you could offer that could get bipartisan support and make it through a Republican-controlled legislature? I see all of you reacting to that. Mr. Baga, we'll start with you.
Absolutely. Look, I'm a former prosecutor. I started my career in the Miami-Dade State Attorney's Office, so I've seen up front and personal the impact that guns can have on our community and the impact of gun violence. We recently heard that the White House created an Office of Gun Violence Prevention. I think we should do the same thing in Florida. Look, as somebody who's been a prosecutor, I've worked with law enforcement agencies, and I've seen that far too often there's not enough communication between these law enforcement agencies as it relates to enforcing our existing gun laws. This can be a great way that we create this agency, and it has the ability to help that conversation between the various law enforcement agencies and work to make sure that we prevent gun violence in our state.
Okay, what about for you, Mr. Keene? 45 seconds.
Great, and it's a good question, and I do appreciate Rishi's response because I agree fully. But the question was, what can we get done with the supermajority? And I just don't think that's going to happen. So something that we could focus on, maybe that the majority would come to the table with, would be on homeowners insurance rates. Let's take something that everybody's paying right now, and let's figure out a way to reduce or at least stop the rate of growth with homeowners insurance. And so I want to be on that committee, and I want to make sure that we're advocating for those kind of changes in our insurance laws today to make sure that we can have an impact, not 5 years from now or 3 years from now, but next year.
All right, you still have about 5 seconds left, but we'll move on. Ms. Guzman, 45 seconds for you as well.
So I mentioned at the beginning my nonprofit work, and something that I've done outside of elected office has already helped pass 2 pieces of legislation for children on the autism spectrum. Now they're able to receive medically necessary services within a public school setting, and they are also able to have excused absences when they're leaving school to receive these same therapies in a clinic environment. To me, it's very important to have a Democrat win this race that can have those conversations in Tallahassee, that on day one has the experience to get that work done. It's a supermajority means that you have to be able to not lose your own principles, but be able to have a conversation and go to Tallahassee to work. And on day one, I'm familiar with the process and ready to continue working.
All right, thank you for that. Okay, where does the time go? We're wrapping up here. It's now time for closing statements. Each candidate has 1 minute. That's it. We'll start with you, Mr. Baga.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you so much to Spectrum and the Orlando Sentinel for hosting this debate. I'm thrilled to have had the opportunity to speak to you all. Look, I think what you've seen here is that there's one candidate who stands on this stage who's fought this battle before. I have done that. I did that for the Democratic Party. I've been proud to continue to fight for our principles, and I will continue to do that if I'm sent to Tallahassee. Even after last year's election, I have continued to fight for our community while as a member of the Orange County Charter Review Commission, making sure that I work with members of our local community to hear their problems and to try to come up with innovative solutions to those problems. So I'm asking for your support and trust again. If you want to learn a little bit more about me, you can go to my website at rishibaga.com. Follow me on all of my social medias at Baga for Florida, and I would love to have your support and your vote on or before November 7th.
Okay, Mr. Keene, you're next. 1 minute.
Well, again, thank you to the Orlando Sentinel and Spectrum for hosting this event. I really appreciate it. You all provide a very important public service for our community. So, what's different about me? So, I'm a husband and a dad. I have a daughter and a son. And I understand the importance of public education, safety, and women's reproductive rights. I've served on many committees and made things happen. For example, getting traffic safety measures in our community, in our neighborhoods, and helping to bring a library to our community. As a military officer, I've lived and worked all over the world, and it's taught me the value of teamwork and the importance of different points of view. I will fight for quality, affordable health care. I'll be a strong champion for protecting LGBTQ+ rights and personal freedom. I will be an advocate for affordable housing, and I will work very hard to lower those homeowners' insurance rates. My name is Tom Keene. I'm ready to serve, and I'm asking for your vote on or before November the 7th. And I also have a website, Keene for Florida, KEENFORFL.com. Check me out. Thank you very much.
Okay, time's up. And now, Ms. Guzman, 1 minute.
Thank you for hosting today's debate. Again, my name is Maruchi Guzman, and I'm running in the special primary for House District 35. Throughout my professional career, I have been dedicated to advancing the needs of my community through nonprofit service, whether serving children on the autism spectrum or through the free clinic for the uninsured. I have been living out the democratic values on a daily basis. In elected office, I will continue to work on those issues. This district is 30% Hispanic and is 52% female. As a Hispanic female, I feel like I'm the best candidate to not only connect with the voters in the primary, but bring that message to the general and give Republicans a fight in January to make sure that we're flipping the seat and making it a Democratic seat. In Tallahassee, upon day one, I will be an effective leader. I will have a seat at the table, and I will continue to fight for women's reproductive health and common sense gun control. I invite you to support me in our campaign to flip House District 35.
Okay, give yourselves a round of applause, the three of you. Go ahead. You can do it. That's all the time that we have. Thank you all and good luck on November 7th. Whomever wins this primary will face the Republican candidate in the special general election on January 16th.
That will be whichever Republican candidate wins their primary, Erica Booth, Ken Davenport, or Scotty Moore. We did also invite them to take part in debate, but they didn't all confirm their participation by our deadline.
Here's some important information for voters. Put it down, jot it down on your calendar. The last day to request a mail-in ballot for the primary is October 26th. Early voting in Orange and Osceola counties, that starts October 28th.
And the deadline to register to vote in the general election is December 18th. And to vote, if you plan to vote by mail, be sure to request a ballot by January 4th. Again, that general special election happens January 16th. Thanks again for watching tonight. For the Orlando Sentinel, I'm Steve Lemongello.
And for Spectrum News 13, I'm Yvette Guzman. Thanks for watching. Good night.